Hi HR Nation, welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. On today's show, we're talking about how to make employee well-being more than a buzzword. I'm joined by Tom Finn, co-founder and CEO at LeggUP. Welcome to the show, Tom. How are you?
I'm terrific, Chris. Thanks for having me. Great to be with you today.
First and foremost, for anyone watching the video, your room behind you is way too organized and clean. I feel like it's just like a prop room that you walk in to do interviews and walk out.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple of times. But one of our clients, when we first moved into this office, came to me and said, look, I got to be honest with you, you have nothing on your shelves. You have nothing behind you, and it looks like you don't have any friends or family. So I took that to heart, and she meant it from a great place. And so I had to put a few things up, and had my wife and kids come in and
love it.
Do a little work on the shelves behind us here.
Yeah. You need those people in your life to tell you those things as well. I think I went a bit overkill. I feel like I started where you did, and then I just couldn't stop putting things on the shelf. And now it's got to the point where I have no room, and it looks like just a load of chaos behind me.
No, not at all. You've got a ton of color, a ton of brightness. It's engaging. I feel like I'm going to need something bright pink behind me.
Don't start.
After this call.
Yeah. Tell everyone a little bit more about yourself, Tom, and your journey and story sort of to where we are today, and how you came to obviously co-founding LeggUP.
Well, I'd love to share a little bit about this. The terms that we're using today in terms of the title are buzzwords around well-being. And I think before we get to my story, there's a couple of things I want to share with you to keep in mind. A couple of buzzwords that are some of my favorites that actually had me start LeggUP: being more mindful, feeling your feelings, right? Setting boundaries, grounding ourselves, and potentially working in some self-care, which we don't always do, but certainly we all look to do. And those are great things. And as you look to start an organization, I went down this path of, hey, what can I be doing that's different in my career? So when I was in large healthcare companies, I was in my 20s. I was managing a team that was 75 people deep, and we had $1.3 billion in business, and I was completely over my skis. I mean, I couldn't tell you how nervous I was all the time in dealing with folks that were significantly older than me, more talented. You have this feeling that you're not good enough to be in the job. And so I raised my hand and I said, gosh, I'd love some coaching. I'd love some professional development. Can somebody give me a hand? And the leadership, to their credit, said, look, we looked into it. It is absolutely unaffordable. And you are not close enough to the CEO to have an executive coach. And so while we'd love to help you, it's not going to happen. Now, what I've never told anybody, I'm going to tell you today, is that led to a whole host of issues for me over a period of time, which was just these feelings of anxiety. I would lead these meetings that had 75 folks either on the phone or in the room, and I would get really anxious. Really anxious for me manifested itself in a little bit of perspiration, sort of on the temples and on the forehead. And it really affected me. It affected me for years. And what I learned from that was I really need a tool. I really need some sort of help to get me over the hurdle. And I wasn't provided it. So I did the best I could in that job. We performed at a high level in the company's eyes. And ultimately I moved on. And when I moved on, I raised my hand again and I said, hey, I'm still working on some things within myself to be a better leader, to be a better manager. Is there anything you can do to help me? And they said, sure, we can get you a coach. You are now close enough to the CEO in our org chart.
You're like, really?
That we can afford it and we want you to have it. And so I went through a business coaching experience over the course of 6 months. And I got to tell you, it changed my life. And the reason it changed my life is because I went from a place of fear and anxiety to a place of I can do it. And some of those feelings are normal and they're okay. And it's okay to talk about it and work within that frame and that structure. And so for me personally, it was a huge lift. Ultimately, out of that, I thought, this isn't right. All of us in our jobs have our family and our friends supporting us, our colleagues, and we love them and they love us. But the reality is they really good, sound business advice because they're not in our business.
Mm-hmm.
And so we set out on this journey to build an infrastructure where employees at all levels, you don't have to be the CEO, employees at all levels can get support from an outside professional development coach that can support you with your development and support you with your mental health, because it's all interconnected. And we're the first company that really looks at it in a way that's interconnected, your development for high performers and the mental health that is the underlying real cause of what we're all dealing with.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thanks so much for sharing that story. And I'm sure loads of people listening, including me, can relate. I remember when I first became a manager and I was just thrown in to the seat. It was like, oh, Chris is great at sales. He can manage a team. and we understand that that's not always the case. And I really struggled in similar kind of experiences with anxiety and stuff like that. And even just like presenting to the rest of the management team. And I asked for training, and I was just given a book. What was the book actually? It was called, I actually remember it now. It was called The 1 Minute Manager. It was a book called The 1 Minute Manager, and it was like the book they gave to people. And I was like, I kind of wanted a bit more when I said I want some coaching. It was like, no, read the book, read The 1 Minute Manager. And it was a tiny book as well. Probably people listening it's quite a popular book. And I kind of just felt clueless along the way, and ended up just kind of doing what I felt was right, as opposed to what I was told. Because in the company I worked in, managing the team was like, you're the manager, I'm the manager, you're the team, you do what I say. And we don't spend time with each other. We don't talk about our feelings and how and what's happening at home. Just here to do a job and get on with it. And I was told to just manage the KPIs. Just look at the KPIs, Chris. That's all that matters as well. But it didn't feel right. And I wanted to share with the team and be like, how are you? How are you feeling? And be able to be vulnerable myself as a leader. And that kind of built such a bond and connection with my team that, in fact, many of those team members are now working with me here at HR Leaders today as well. But it's been great that you've been able to democratize that coaching and combine it with Wellbeing, because, after the last 15, 16 months we've had, is more important now more than ever.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And there's tons of great books out there, and we should all be readers. Good leaders are readers. And all of that is important. It's critically important, but it's a portion of the work that we all need to do to grow and be successful in our careers. It's not the whole answer.
Yeah, I agree. Tell everyone a bit more about the organization and what you do. You shared briefly, but just kind of give everyone a little bit more insight to LeggUP and what you do.
So we work with large, medium-sized, and small businesses across the globe. We deliver productivity and well-being science solutions. And ultimately, what we do is measure all of the results of employees for their employers. And so think of it this way. We walk in and we give coaching sessions in 6 or 12 increments to employees at all levels. Could be your newest employee, could be your seasoned manager, could be your executive. And what we tend to find is that through that process, we'll also highlight some issues that are mental health related that they'll get support for as well. And we also add on mental health services in the US. We now run a large mental health therapist-led network with a product that we call Ability CBT. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to this. We've taken cutting edge science, personalized performance and mental health, and data for our HR partners, put it all together in a really unique and simple package, and made it available to companies of all sizes.
Mm-hmm. And also was fantastic, especially with how we've evolved. I just literally did a workshop before we spoke about remote work, hybrid. Now, in the past, the only way you could have a coach is if you were sitting in a room looking at a coach, having a conversation with them as well. So it's a massive opportunity for organizations to be able to offer that to their employees as well on scale, which is incredible.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. So before the pandemic, we would reach out to HR leaders and we would say, we have this virtual coaching platform with mental health support. It's really going to help your employees, and we sell it and work with you as an employee benefit. So what that means is we're working with HR leaders on the benefit side. We're working with talent development leaders. And a lot of the answers we got were, wow, virtual conversations, does that really work?
Yeah.
Is that even a thing?
Yeah.
And I remember we cut our agreement with Zoom before Zoom went public, before anybody knew about Zoom, and we got onboarded by employee number 18. And he was
Wow.
a senior executive, and they had never done a deal of this type for an organization to give it to other people in your network. So they call it one to many
Hmm.
in terms of their business model. And they had never crossed this bridge, and we were the first company to go into business with them under this arrangement. And I find it, it makes me smile
It's
that
true, right?
all
Because
of
it
us.
seems so strange back then. Like the idea that you would do that, everyone's like, well, "What? That's not gonna work." like anything. And there was a lot of, and you understand why, obviously, because tradition, what we've traditionally done, and the way we've been set up.
That's what makes all of this so important. It's really important work that we do. I'm mission driven by nature. I've always been looking for that mission in my life that makes work not work.
Yeah.
And this is a really easy one for us to solve. If we can provide the programs and the services in terms of performance and mental health in the same realm, I think we can do a lot of good in the world. I think we can help a lot of teams and HR leaders really develop the organizational culture that they're looking for so that they can thrive and their organizations can thrive in this new world of work.
Mm-hmm. From speaking with your clients and obviously based on your experience as well, what are the main sort of employee benefits that prioritize well-being and decrease turnover as well?
Well, I think we have to understand what the main requirements are to improve well-being. I think we have to take a little bit of a history lesson. So stay with me. So if you think about the history of employee benefits, right around 1877 was the first employee health plan, right? And that's when we started looking at employee benefits as something that was of value in companies. In the 1940s, we came out with paid vacation. And
very innovative at the time.
Yeah, it was cutting edge. We are going to give you a day off.
And we're going to pay you. Yeah.
And we're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then you start to look at maybe the 1980s, right? In the 1980s, that was the wave of stock options. Certainly, your publicly traded companies that are your listeners and your partners, they recognize that stock options for certain levels of employees are great retention tools. And then we got on to parental care and family paid time leave and those types of things that are absolutely important. But I think what's important in this story is that was in the 80s. That was the last time we've had real innovation in employee benefits, the 1980s. And people were still smoking on airplanes in the 1980s.
I can't even imagine that, by the way, on that point. Being on an airplane, it was anyway, carry on. That just seems like crazy for those people. Yeah.
You're 100% right. And as you think about this, that there hasn't been a ton of innovation in employee benefits since people were smoking on airplanes, it just sort of perks your ear up and says, hold on a second, that can't be right.
Yeah, it does.
It's true.
Yeah.
And so as we look at, your question was wellness and well-being, what are the key indicators essentially? What are some things that organizations can do? Well, if we just go back now 10 or 15 years, there was this big movement of wellness. And wellness was really about physical health. And it was driven by trying to get people healthier for a couple of different reasons. One, it's good for you. It's good for your family. It can help with the longevity of your life. That's all fantastic. It was also driven by insurance companies who wanted to lower healthcare claims by having healthier people have early intervention, because we know that preventative medicine is far less expensive than surgeries or acute issues that happen for individuals along the way. And so there was lots of good reasons to do what's called wellness, but it was really physical based. None of it was about mental health or the interconnectivity between that and your workplace. So
Yeah.
As we look at where we are today, those wellness programs still exist. Some of them are fantastic. Some of them are oversold. There are apps that we listen to. There are tons of apps. Headspace, for one, comes to mind, that are terrific for mindfulness and calming yourself down and helping you sleep if that's part of your process. But there's really no place in benefits yet for developing talent and providing mental health support for employees. And that's where we've come in. I've had a handful of calls in the last couple of months with either talent leaders or HR leaders at medium and large size firms that say, we're waiting to figure out who your competitors are because you've developed something that's so integrated, we're not really sure where to put it, but we know that we need it.
It's a good objection to have there.
Right, it's a great objection. Yeah. But I think as we look at this, just take a step back. Forget that we started LeggUP and just think about human behavior and who we are as people. We go to work every day with some level of baggage, whether it's the kids, the wife, the friends, the family. There's something going on in all of our lives. And when we go to work, we're also pressured and stressed with whatever the soup du jour is that day, whatever that task is that maybe we don't feel equipped to accomplish, whatever the boss is asking for that, my goodness, I'm trying to balance that with my family commitments and this deadline that I have to hit. Or worse yet, Chris, you give me a task that I really don't know how to do and don't have the network built inside my company to have anybody help me. It creates a lot of pressure and stress in people, and there's nowhere to go, right? It's wonderful to have a family that supports you and loves you, but there's really no place to go. And so the future of well-being, if we really want to get down to it, has to start and stop with the employee experience and providing programs that support the employee as an individual. Mm-hmm. And it's not EAPs for my friends in HR anymore. Like it's not EAPs. EAPs started back in the 40s as well. They go back even to the 20s, and they were originally, for those of you who don't know, EAP is an employee assistance program. Yeah. And it was originally designed to curb alcoholism in the workplace. That was its original design. It moved through a number of iterations.
Those are also the days, Tom, where you could smoke and drink in the workplace. That's probably one of the reasons why they had those a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they were really productive at the time and terrific programs that were needed in those generations. But things have moved on, and we're still looking at EAPs that have 1% to 3% utilization as a great employee benefit product. So that just means that 1% to 3% of any employee group is actually making a phone call for any reason or going onto their website for any reason. And to me, that utilization just tells us, look, this is not a product that's in demand anymore. This is not something we need to be paying for. But it's really hard to take a product out if you're an employee benefit executive and say, I'm going to take out this EAP, right? And so what we have to do is look at how do we create complementary programs that integrate with EAPs, that integrate with that same original philosophy, but provide much more customization and personalization for employees of today.
Mm-hmm. I love the fact that you've made this connection and that you're focusing on the two, because the reason I quit my last job and started this company was because of a few things, but the stress and the pressure of the leadership role that I was in and the lack of support that I got was causing my anxiety just to go through the roof, to the point where there was like weeks where I couldn't even leave the house because I would get down the road, and the idea and the thought of going to work and dealing with that pressure without any support or guidance or coaching gave me so much anxiety that I literally felt like I was having a heart attack and went home again. And I sat down with my wife and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, and it isn't because I didn't want to do it. I loved my team. I was there for over 10 years. I loved my team. I loved what I did. But there was this lack of support to help me get to that next level, and also a culture in the team where you wouldn't ever really discuss. I didn't feel like I had the support of the leaders where I could be vulnerable and say, look, I'm not feeling well. Right. And it's not physically, because physically we can talk about that. But to say that, I need a few days off because I'm feeling stressed and I'm feeling anxious, I genuinely felt in that company they would probably laugh at me and say, grow a pair, Chris. And that was unfortunately the experience. If I would have had that support, that mentorship, that someone there, a coach, and to help me through that, I probably would never have left that organization. And would probably still, and don't get me wrong, I'm pretty grateful for it because it's where I am now, and I learned a lot from it, and I love what I do. But it kind of just that for me, listening to what you've created and the combination of bringing those two elements together really resonates with me, because that's something that would have really helped me back then in it being in that position.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And the integration between performance and mental health is something that we all deal with in our brains, but it's really hard to productize it. And so that's something we've been able to do, is really find a way to, I'll give you an example, decrease burnout by 66%. So burnout's a big buzzword, since we're on the buzzwords.
It's another one. Yeah.
Podcast today. Burnout, avoiding burnout is something that's really important. And look, we're all carrying this baggage around, whether your baggage is related to COVID specifically, or it has something to do with where you are in your career or the family struggles that you're dealing with. We're all dealing with it. And so if we can help people avoid burnout, and what we do at LeggUP, we actually help people avoid burnout by about 66%. So 66% decrease in burnout through our programs in just 3 to 4 months, which I think is really important. But it's not just that one data point that we have to look at. We have to look at the whole person. How are they doing in their family lives? How are they doing in their work lives? And if we can integrate this and we can provide it as an employee benefit, not only is that employee going to be a better line worker, manager, executive, but they're going to be a better partner, a better husband, a better father. They're going to be a better mother, right? They're going to have the tools in their toolbox to really excel in all places in their life. And that's what Benefits was originally built for, is to help you do a more effective job in the workday, but also be a better person. And I think these are the things that we're combining.
So what can we do then to address this lack of preventative mental health offerings? Why has it taken us so long, and since the 80s? Why did it slow down so much and it took a pandemic, literally, and people like yourself to start addressing some of these issues?
Well, I think when you look at it, you have to look at the cultural components, and you have to really divide it by countries and continents and different markets, because mental health is viewed very differently depending on where you live in the world. Like, I'll give you a great example. Canada has done a great job with mental health, and they have put that at the forefront of their healthcare system. And they've done a beautiful job integrating mental health programs with physical health programs and providing support for their employees, the citizens of Canada. And so there's examples that we can point to that have really done a great job. The US has always had a culture of sort of that brazen, let me put up a brick wall, let me show you I'm okay, even though I'm not.
Same in the UK.
And I would phrase it a little differently. My mother's British, and I lived in England until I was 7. I went to a boys' prep school in a blazer before I moved over to the US. And we had a term in our family, and it was stiff upper lip. You have a stiff upper lip. Don't let anybody see you sweat. Don't let anybody see you have emotion. Stiff upper lip, Thomas, was the term that I heard a lot. And so I think we've got some of these countries that are doing a great job, Canada as an example. And then if we start to look at, organizations in, as you said, the UK and those in the US, culturally, it just has been taboo. If you said it, Chris, just a minute ago, my goodness, it's okay if I miss work for physical health because I'm sick, but it's not okay if I'm not doing okay mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
And we have to get over that. But employers are not just going to break out and say, hey, you can take as many days off as you want for mental health. That's not going to happen because it's just not built into the culture of what we do. And people are going to look at their organizations and think that we're letting productivity slip. So how do we solve this problem? Well, first of all, we need to provide something for all employees. We have to stop cherry picking different groups of employees and saying, we care about our managers, we care about our nurses, we care about executives, but everybody else can fend for themselves. We really have to look at this as a whole organizational strategy. That's first and foremost the most important thing that we can all do. Mm-hmm. And then you've got to build programming that really highlights that it's okay to go through coaching and support for mental health. And right now, there's still a little bit of a stigma there where, I'll give you a perfect example. We have a member who came to us and said, I don't need this. I'm really talented. I get good scores on my reviews, and I really don't need this. Okay, that's one person's opinion because they feel like they're being pushed to improve, right? Where maybe perhaps they don't want to. And so that really highlights that not everybody is ready for coaching in professional development or mental health when an HR leader thinks they're ready or when their manager thinks they're ready. So we really need to create a space where programs go over a period of time and you can access them whenever you need them. If you want to get promoted at a company and you're a hard charger, you might need coaching right now. But you know what? If you're doing great and you're really happy with your job and you're dealing with some family things, you're cruising, you might need it 6 months from now or a year from now. The only way to accomplish this is to put it in place as an employee benefit. It's the only way I can figure it out. And so that's really where I see this going is you've got to look at the whole population. You've got to understand that different organizations move differently, just like different countries move differently. And that's really where we're trying to go as an organization. And that's just something I feel very strongly about personally.
Yeah. It's interesting as well, because one of the big shifts that's happening now is the approach that companies are taking when they're looking at their employee benefits, because employees are now demanding a customized experience. You know, in the past, it's like, here's our benefits. And well, I may not need those benefits because maybe I'm at a stage in my life where those aren't relevant to me and vice versa now. So having something like this, they can offer employees, as you mentioned, it could be a particular time in their career that it makes sense for them to go down this route as well. So companies are really struggling now, completely reimagining what employee benefits looks like. And I feel like these are the things now they're going to introduce that perhaps in the past they may not, like you said, when you spoke to the HR leader, that they probably wouldn't have considered in the past. Whereas I'm sure you're having those conversations now and they're probably calling you to have that conversation. And we spoke, before we did this podcast, that the amount of people now that are reaching out to you and the team wanting to learn more because they're realizing that this is the approach they're going to have to take if they're going to be able to scale this and provide the support that they need. The traditional model just doesn't work.
I 100% agree with you, but I do think there are a couple of watch outs that I see for HR and talent leaders that I hear all the time when we're talking to prospects and customers. And let me share those with you. Mm-hmm. So the first watch out is what we found is that there's a lot of politics, but in large organizations between the HR team and the talent development team. And they don't necessarily always report to each other structurally. They may be in different departments and have different reporting lines. They certainly have different budgets and they certainly have different objectives. So it's not always this interconnected discussion between HR and talent. And that's one of the things we found is that somebody on HR may say, wow, this is just terrific. We've got to implement it. And then the head of talent says, hold on a second. We have quote unquote training programs, right? And at times you have some person that gets it and says, I understand coaching and development and mental health. And then somebody else that thinks we're sitting in a boardroom with a PowerPoint, talking through slides, which couldn't be further from the truth. And so that political interaction within large organizations is something that we have to figure out how to solve, because we need to support the development leadership and we need to support those in HR, but we need them to communicate as well within their companies and have the confidence to say, this is new and different, and it's okay that we work together on this. It's okay that we can do this for our employees. So I think that is one of the watch outs I see from large organizations. The second one, which is probably obvious to everybody listening, is budget. Okay, guys, this sounds great. Where am I going to find the money for it? And it doesn't have to be as expensive as you think. It can be absolutely affordable for small organizations and large organizations. We've even developed something that makes it a voluntary benefit. So for those employers that have no budget and no resources, you are offering other benefits and you're doing it with voluntary and employer paid. Why don't you offer professional development and mental health services as a voluntary benefit? It doesn't cost you anything. And
it's
so
true.
There's another opportunity. We look at politics, we look at adding it without a budget concern, right? And then I think the last thing that I run into is the HR person or the decision maker that we're talking to, might be a CFO, doesn't have an issue with mental health in their mind, has never needed a coach.
I get it.
Very personally, you know what? I don't need this stuff and I'm at the top of the organization. And I think we have to question that really, really hard And I'm going to unpack this a little bit because it's really important to me. When you start to look at, hey, it's not for me, so I'm not going to provide it for my employees, I think you really do your company a disservice. And one of the big topics that we talk about today is DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you start to look at the top Fortune 500 companies around the world, most of the CEOs are male and most of the CEOs are white. And I think we are all looking to make that change. But if you only give services and mentoring to the same group of employees, you're never going to create change. So bring in an employee benefit that covers all employees with all backgrounds on all continents, that provides them the coach that they need to be the CEO, that they need to be the next chief HR officer, right? And give them the opportunities that perhaps are not being given to them now. And so there really is this mirror effect of, hey, I'm good, I didn't need it, so nobody else needs. Really got to be clear about that it's kind of an unacceptable answer.
Yeah.
In today's generation, in today's world.
Mm-hmm. I think you're completely right. And it's quite shocking to hear that from you, but obviously you're having these conversations every day. But yeah, I suppose I'm seeing more and more leaders now, though, on the flip side of that, coming out and being vulnerable as well. So what I hope is that's kind of a bit of a wake-up call for everyone else, that even if you aren't suffering, that just hearing those stories and seeing other leaders in similar positions to you inspires you to do the right thing. And not even just the right thing, it's going to affect the bottom line of the business too. The research and the data is there as well. So if you haven't seen that as well, but like you mentioned Canada, I recently interviewed the chief HR officer of Walmart Canada, who just kind of came out talking about her struggle with anxiety, where she was, driving on the middle of the freeway and had a full-blown anxiety attack behind the wheel and had to kind of pull over, and just kind of struggling so much. And again, was in an environment where you don't talk about that kind of stuff, and as a leader as well. But since kind of opening up Nabila and sharing her story, she's inspired so many other leaders in the company that even if they weren't suffering, to be a voice and to listen and to lead with empathy as well. And I'm hoping that's going to impact leaders, those leaders that you're mentioning, that I don't need that as well. I hope we can get through to them that way. How do you get through to those people? Because I'm sure if you're having those conversations with people, is it then leading with the data? Or is it sharing the examples? How do we overcome that?
Well, we try to do a couple of things when we're having those conversations, and we realize that somebody maybe hasn't had this personal experience, so to them it's not quite as important. We try to lead with data and say, look, 62% of employees think benefits are now more important. So let's understand that people are looking to you for something different. And then we'll go into conversations around 70% of employees are experiencing burnout symptoms. So it may not be you, but 7 out of 10 employees are really experiencing some sort of burnout. And what's important, it may be that the person that we're talking to is the CFO and they're really focused on the financials. That has a huge drain on productivity within your organization and will impact your financials over a period of time. So, So you're right. We try to hit them with data. We try to help them understand that 22% of employees feel depressed while working. And this is really, really important in terms of your culture as well for your organization. It's important in your recruiting. It's important in your retention. So this really covers all aspects of your business that you have to think about. So that's really where we start, Chris, is trying to help them understand that it doesn't have to be you that's impacted, but there are a whole group of people that are in your organizational chart that are going to need this support.
Mm-hmm. For yourself personally, as a CEO, what have you learned most about your own employee population, when it comes to taking care of the mental health?
I didn't realize how important career pathing and providing a a really clear solution for our own employees made us an attractive employer. So I can tell you that without exception, every single person that we have hired at LeggUP over the last couple of years has come to our organization because they see that they can get the support that they need and they can have career growth and have an outside coach. And it's something they're very, very excited about when they come on board. We have great employee benefits. We have all the other things that Fortune 500 companies have as well. But this piece, their desire to grow and their desire to be brought through a process was really important to them. And we hired people that were doing very, very well in their existing employer, but they felt stuck. They felt like nobody was listening to them.
Yeah.
They felt like they had nowhere to go. And so if you're an employer out there and you're creating these ceilings for employees all over the place without giving them growth opportunities, your best people will leave. And I think we've taken some examples from the tech space as well, where you can come in and here's your core function that we're asking you to do, but we really want you to wear multiple hats.
Yes.
And we want you to look into other parts of the business that you get excited about. And then let's reconnect after we've done this for a year and see, where are you a good fit in the organization? We're not afraid to move people around and move talent into different roles. We had a person who's heading up marketing for us early on, and he did a terrific job. And ultimately, he's our head of operations because he's really good at operations, right? Yeah. And he's done a bang up job for all of our customers, and he's really focused in that space. But you have to take that mindset of let's develop these folks and let's figure out where they land in our organization. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we do is we hire for attitude and aptitude. It's a very simple hiring process. Do you have a great attitude? Are you a good person? And do you have the aptitude to do your job? Outside of that, we can help you with everything else. Yeah. So I think that very simple hiring approach has helped us really key in for our employees. Mm-hmm.
And obviously, to add on top of that, anyone I've spoke to in your team, it comes across is the why and the purpose of what they do and the work that you do that literally changes people's lives. So that all combined as well, but. And then I think now more than ever as well, people, I know a lot of friends and family members of mine, they've had a lot of time to think over the last 15 months and think, is this something I actually really want to do for a living? And now looking at organizations, and the number one requirement when they're looking is this company aligned with my why, my values, where I want to be, where I want to go, the impact I want to have on the world as well. And I think companies are realizing that now. And those are the ones that are going to win. The focus on the employee.
And it can't be lip service, Chris.
No.
It can't be, I read an article and I know how to use the buzzword well-being, and aren't we going to be mindful? It can't be those words in meetings that have no substance behind it. I think those days are sort of behind us.
Yeah.
If you start to, I know you're very well read, your audience is incredibly well read, but some of the terms we're seeing now are the Great Resignation is coming next.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. You put it better than I did. The Great Resignation is coming. I've seen, 70%? I think Gartner said, 70% of people are looking for a new job. 70%, or considering, I think is the language they use, a new job right now. That is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. So what are the tools that you're going to put in place that are of value to those 70%? They're going to help them be retained at your organization, because you don't want that turnover. You don't want that brain drain when people leave the organization.
Yeah.
But if you can't create a path for them, if you can't give them employee benefits that matter, and I always say, employee benefits matter. We have pet insurance, right?
Yeah, pet insurance.
We have pet insurance.
Pet insurance. Listen, pet insurance is no joke. Pet insurance is expensive, and people now pets are people's children. So that's very important to people.
It is very important to people, and we have a whole group on our team that are very pet friendly. There are certainly meetings where we have cats jumping up on Zoom, people working at home, and dogs barking.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, pet insurance doesn't retain anybody. Mm-hmm. It doesn't help anybody's career growth. It's important, but it's not going to help you with your 70% of folks that are looking at other organizations. And so that's where I see kind of the rubber meeting the road, is we've got to put in programs now that can really impact people's lives today. And you're going to have your top performers stay as a result of some of the outcomes that we see.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but looking into the future, what do you think what does the future of employee mental health, and corporate wellbeing look like? If I know it's something you must think about as the CEO of this organization. What do you kind of predict things are going to look like, or you hope things look like 5 to 10 years from now?
In my mind, we have to get away from the language of we've always done it this way, so we're going to keep doing it that way. And as soon as we can get away from that language and start to really unpack benefits and say, what is actually important today? What is important for today's generation of employees? That's when we're really going to see this sea change. And the people that are going to do it may not be the first folks that you think of, Chris. The people that are going to do it are employee benefits brokers and consultants. Employee benefits brokers and consultants are the key advisors to your HR partners. They're the key advisors that build programming in medical, dental, vision, life, disability, pet insurance, and of course, LeggUP. And so I think if we start to look at benefits advisors as the key spearhead to unpack what we've done in the past and repackage employee benefits for the future, I think those are the folks that can really help our HR partners deliver on this for their organization. Amazing.
Well, look, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. It was a real pleasure. And I know I told my little stories there. Sorry if I bored everyone, but this is like what you're doing is really personal to me, just given some of the experiences that I've had in my career and I've seen happen to other people. And the intersections that you've brought together, I feel like are super important and so interlinked and complement each other as well. And I'm excited to see how this evolves. And I know you're already working with some incredible companies, but I'm hoping that many other companies have woken up to really what the value this can bring, and it literally change people's lives, literally, and the way they work. So before I let you go, where can people reach out if they want to reach out to you personally or say hello or learn more? Where's the best place?
Yeah, you can find me on leggup.com, leggup.com if you want to check us out on the website. You can find me on Twitter at _Tom Finn. You can find me on LinkedIn _Tom Finn as well. So it should be easy for folks to find me. I'd love to connect with your audience. If there's any way I can be of service to anybody in your network, would love to have that conversation, see how we can help others.
Amazing. Well, thanks again, Tom. I'll enjoy the rest of the day. And for everyone listening, those links are already in the description. So make sure you go and click with Tom on LinkedIn and all the other places he mentioned. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon, okay?
Chris, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be with you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.